I think that the Phantasm fans are some of the most intelligent, gentle, and wonderful people one could ever meet. Now, they may not look too normal. You know, there's a lot of body piercings, lots of tattoos, but a lot of times you'll find that these people, the ones that look the most scary, are actually some of the most intelligent and most kind and forthcoming and fun to talk to. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Nice to be here, and really a privilege to be here.
When I finally kind of figured out that there was a fan base and started working the shows, like I said, and then it got to a point where it kind of constantly amazed me, and then I kind of got used to it, and then it got to a point where the fan base, I realized it's, you know, it's a global fan base. It's huge.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the nicest tall guy I've ever met in my entire life, Mr. Angus Scrimm.
Phantasm has a fan base that does extend all over the world, if my fan mail is to be believed. They're just warm and affectionate and completely flattering and inviting.
I don't, as a rule, generally go to conventions. I've done it twice. It's always nice to meet fans who are, you know, respectful of your space, but also able to communicate their, you know, appreciation of your work. Of course, that's nice. I met a very interesting guy in New York City at I think it was a Fangoria event, and this totally nice gentleman had my face tattooed on his calf.
That's amazing, you know, you can see his beautiful artwork, and you're really interested in the film. I mean, that's amazing. And Klaus Gurley says, oh, you haven't seen anything yet. He goes, raise your pant leg. So he raises up his pant leg, and here's my face tattooed just above his kneecap.
I can't say that there's really been a fan that I wanted to have, you know, be gone. You know, get away from the table. You stand back there a little ways, would you? There's some that have been, you know, a little wacky, but nobody threatening, and it's been just a joyous ride, really.
I don't really get it. I don't quite get it.
Michael Bolden held out for a long time against doing conventions and still does very few because he was fearful. He thought, they're horror fans. They'll massacre me.
I've had some scary experiences with fans, and I have been a little bit, you know, too pressed by overzealous fans, and well-meaning as they may be.
I actually had somebody come into my house in military fatigues, just kind of burst in the doorway, claiming that he was going to be the new Angus Scrimm. I looked over at my wife, who was sitting at the dinner table with my young son. The old survival instinct came through at that moment, and I said, I don't see you as new Angus Scrimm. I see you as like the hero. I see you as like the good guy. I said, do you have some Phantasm memorabilia? He goes, no. And I said, well, I just so happen to have a whole bunch of it. If I gave it to you, would you, like, leave? I mean, could you go so we could have our dinner? He goes, yeah. So I walked over to this cabinet, and I took out this whole thing of worldwide Phantasm memorabilia, and I just gave it to him. I said, thank you, very much for stopping by, but talk to you later.
I occasionally go to some of the horror conventions and get to meet Phantasm fans in person. And I'm telling you, I really thrive on it, because a lot of times, especially with Phantasm, because Phantasm is really an interpretive vehicle. The original was designed that way, certainly. And so some of the interpretations that you'll get from people are so passionate and so strange, and things that I have never conceived of.
Tall Man's character was very intriguing to me. I wondered what what it was all about, death and funeral homes. I had not really considered those things when I was a teenager.
It was just such a great original story, and you know, you kind of learn what goes on behind the scenes of a working mortuary. Then I kind of became interested in that field and kind of bought books on embalming and stuff like that and kind of read up on it.
I did some crazy things as a fan, as a kid, because of Phantasm. I got myself a moped and I started chasing hearses and spying on funerals.
And of course got interested in hearses. I bought a hearse just after Phantasm came out. In fact, the last hearse I owned was the hearse used in Phantasm 2, a '69 Cadillac.
I just remember my parents, they couldn't afford a babysitter, so I got drugged to every movie they went to. Boy! You know, just with films like Phantasm, I would go home after seeing a film and just start drawing.
When I first saw Phantasm, I was really the only one in New Jersey that seemed to have seen it. Nobody else knew what I was talking about. I felt that if I didn't put something down on paper, I was going to lose something very precious, an experience I'd had. And so I, just from memory, started writing the entire movie. It was like a novelization that I had done of Phantasm when I was like 15. It's got off for reading now.
The Phantasm comic book that I did when I was still in high school, it was my version of Phantasm 2. I decided to go off and do my own thing and pick it up where Phantasm 1 left off, and I did the same thing that they did in Phantasm 2, where it picks up right, you know, as Mike crashes through that closet at the end. But it's just a totally different story, and the characters go onto this red planet, you know, the other world that the tall man lives in.
Probably about 1980, I started collecting the posters and lobby cards from different countries, and every time I'd go to a horror film convention, if I saw anything in the dealer's room, you know, I'd snatch it up, you know, because they're really scarce now. Starting with the collection here, this is a piece that was given out to the first 50 people that went to the first Phantasm back in '79. Hard item to find these days, I'm sure. I haven't even looked on eBay for it. This is a head of Angus Scrimm from Oblivion. This was actually a life cast made of Angus for a film called Lost Empire. Back in 1980, and then I loaned this to Don when they made Oblivion to blow him up at the end of the film. Down here we have a dwarf mask, and this is one of the dwarf robes. This was used in Part 2 and 3, and this is, of course, the sphere. That's one of the spheres from Part 2.
I had put a little ad into Fangoria magazine many years ago, great magazine, and they've been very positive towards the Phantasm films. And I put in a little, if you want to correspond, if you're a Phantasm fan. And Guy Thorpe immediately responded when I was in high school.
Thanks to Fangoria magazine, I met a gal named Kristen, and we've been friends for about 20 odd years now.
It's because of Guy that I was able to move down to Los Angeles, work on Phantasm 2. We became roommates.
Luckily, I met a person named Kristen Deem who worked on Phantasm 2. I think I met her through the back of a Fangoria magazine. It's like, I worked on Phantasm 2, and I know Mr. Casarelli, and I just got all panicky, and I was like, oh my God, I have all this artwork and stuff. You know, I love these films. I was like, is there any way that maybe you could forward these things to him? And all I can say is that, you know, Don Casarelli was nice enough to actually write back. You know, every once in a while, Don would hire me for things. He'd be like, you know, we're gonna do a Phantasm Christmas card this year, and so we always kept in contact. In college, we had to take an animation course, and one of the things you had to do was a stop-motion animation film. So I did a stop-motion animation puppet of the Mike character from Phantasm. And then from there, I just figured, well, I might as well go and do some dwarves. Don Casarelli actually commissioned me in, I think, 1998 to do something for, I believe it was McFarlane Toys. They showed a slight interest in doing a Phantasm line, a tall man, I think, and maybe some dwarves. And so I was hired to do some sketches and some layouts, and you know, they were full color paintings.
after I finished working on Phantasm 2, I had this period in my life where I realized, what do I want to do next? We're not doing another sequel right away. And I realized this would be a great opportunity to go to More Choice Science School and really try to see what that is all about. And a lot of the people in the More Choice Science School were actually people that admitted that one of the things that brought them there was Phantasm.